Okay, welcome to the video. SIG Guy here. I think one of the most common questions I get asked after posting a video is, where did I get that pick? Where did I get that punch? Or whatever tool I'm using in the video. So I've taken the time, I'm putting together a couple kits. This one's going to be specific for the 365. I'm calling it the 365 D.A.R.K Disassembly and Reassembly Kit. And it includes the tools that I use to easily disassemble and reassemble my 365. So in this video, I'll show you how it's used. Let's get started. Okay, the primary function of this video is going to be to demonstrate how easy it is to reassemble a 365 using the kit here, okay? Not how to disassemble and reassemble a 365 or clean and lube it. I do have videos like that on my YouTube, so if you are looking for a video like that, please go over to my YouTube and check those out. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure we're working on a safe firearm. So we're going to remove our magazine, lock our slide to the rear, physically and visually check to make sure there's no round in the chamber, no magazine, check our breech face, look away, do the exact same thing again. Safe firearm. So we're going to rotate our takedown lever, remove our slide. We're going to use our pin removal tool to remove our retaining pin, just like that. This pin removal tool is a little different than the previous version. It's a little bit smaller. It actually fits the safety lever pivot pin as well. And it does have a chamfered edge, so did the old one. So that helps if you slide off of the retaining pin, you don't gouge up your grip module, okay? So we're going to move our fire control unit from our grip module. And the first thing we're going to do is remove our trigger bar spring, which is right here. We're going to put our pick underneath it just like that and remove that from our trigger bar. We're going to let that fall out just like that. We're going to drop our trigger bar like that, let our disconnector fall out. And then we're going to use our pin removal tool to push out our safety lever pivot pin, which is the smaller hole on the bottom. There's a top hole and a bottom hole. This pin fits perfectly right inside there. And as you can see, it's pushing out my safety lever pivot pin. So we're going to push that all the way out, pull that out, remove our tool, let the safety lever fall out into our hand. And then I'm going to flip it over to this side here. Now we can remove our takedown safety lever, just like that. And we can remove our takedown lever as well. So we'll flip it back over to this side, and we're going to use our punch, which is the perfect size for our trigger pivot pin, okay? So we're going to use that to push out the pin. And then we're going to remove our trigger bar and remove our trigger. So basically all that we have left inside here is our sear spring, and our slide catch and the spring that holds that. We're not going to take that apart at this time. So I'm going to use my pin removal tool. Now I can see my sear pivot pin because my safety lever is removed through the top hole. So I'm going to use my pin removal tool to push out that pin there. And then we'll let our sear and sear spring fall out into our hand. And there you go. That's the complete disassembly minus our slide catch of the 365. At this time you can clean up everything, and then we'll move on to reassembling. Alright, so everything's all cleaned up. We're going to reassemble it, and this is where all the magic happens with our disassembly and reassembly kit. Having the right tools makes this a breeze going back together, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is install our sear. A lot of people put the sear and the sear spring together and drop it down into the cavity. I like to kind of do them separate. So drop the sear in there. Just like that. Okay, and if I can see the sear, the lower portion of my sear, if I can see that in this hole right here, it's not installed correctly. You need to lift it up, push it back, and it's got to be down on this side of the cavity, okay? So that's in there the right way. And then on my sear spring, obviously this leg here needs to go underneath the sear. So I kind of twist it on the side here. I put it down on the side of the sear, rotate it, and then drop it right down inside there. Just like that. Okay. In the spring, we want to see in that hole. If we don't see it in the hole, it's because, as you can see right here, my sear spring, you can actually see it right here. It actually needs to be up against the bottom side of our sear. So it's rotating like this. So that leg is that we need to see in the hole is facing forward. It needs to be rotated like this so it'll show in the hole here. So what I do is I tip it upside down, kind of give it a tap, push my spring down against my sear. And you just kind of move things around. And you can see the wire from my spring right in that hole, which is where it needs to be. So I'm going to take my pin removal tool and I'm going to put it up through the bottom here so nothing moves on me. Notice I can still see my sear spring in the hole there. So everything's positioned properly. I'm going to remove my tool just a little bit so I can get my sear pivot pin in the hole. I'm going to use my tool. I'm going to rotate it around because it's a little smaller than the hole to line everything up and push that in there. And very important on this step here, make sure that your pivot pin is all the way in. If you see a gap underneath it, it's not all the way in. It's just because your sear is kind of torqued a little bit from the spring. So just kind of move it around and it'll line up the hole on this side here and it'll allow that pin to go all the way through. Okay. So this is where the magic happens with this punch. Now that we can see our sear spring in the hole here, our safety lever pivot pin needs to go through that hole. Well, it can't go through that hole because the spring is there. In the past, I would use a punch. I would come up through the bottom and I would get it behind the spring and kind of pry it up like that, trying to hold that like that and then put my pin down through here. It's pretty difficult. But if you have the right size punch, we can stick it underneath the spring here. So we're going to come in at an angle like this, put it right underneath that spring. We're going to push it all the way in and give it a little twist, pull it out, and voila. That spring, you can't even see it now. It's actually popped up on a ledge that's inside the frame here, a little shelf. And that's what it's made for, to hold that spring up there. Okay? So with the right size punch and the right shape punch, that's where this part here is pretty important. Makes this reassembling very easy. So I'm going to take my safety lever pivot pin. I'm going to put it right in there, making sure this top shelf here is facing down, because that other top part is what captures our sear pivot pin. And that's why it's important to make sure that sear pivot pin is all the way in, because if that's not all the way in, this can't go all the way in, and then it won't fit inside your grip module. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to put my trigger in. Don't put the pin in yet. Put your trigger bar on first. Just like that. Put that down into place. Just like that. Flip it over. Put your pivot pin in. Make sure it's in all the way. Either flush or countersunk. Can't be sticking out a little bit. And we're going to take our takedown lever, slide that in, making sure we're in all the way. We're flush with our slide catch. And take our takedown safety lever and put that into the notch on our takedown lever. Drop that right into place just like that. I'm going to slide our safety lever pivot pin in just until we can start seeing it in our hole. If you go too far, use your punch that we pushed it out with, which is silver, and you can see it in that slit a lot easier. Right here. See the silver part of my punch? I'm going to install our safety lever. This can be a little tricky sometimes. Making sure you go down to the proper hole. Use my pick. Line up my hole a little better. Take my punch that I used to push it out. Put it in the hole. I'm going to make sure, I don't know if I'm captured. I don't feel like I am. Maybe I was. It doesn't look, looks like it's further forward than it should be. I'm gonna see if I can pivot on there. I like to check to make sure I'm pivoting it on there before I push my pin in, which I am. Use my finger to push my pin in. Turn it upside down, doesn't fall out. Again, check to see if it pivots. A lot of times I put that pin in, you think it's in there correctly, and then you go to flip it upside down, the safety lever falls out. So that is flush. Safety lever with the side of the FCU. I'm in far enough. Next I'll put my disconnector back in. It only goes in one way. Put my trigger bar up underneath that. Put my trigger bar spring in. Hold my trigger with my thumb. Use my 45-degree pick to pull my trigger bar spring back and put it behind my trigger bar, making sure it's in the hole, which it is. And then the only thing left is to reassemble the 365. Okay, so finish this up. Just install our FCU into our grip module, put our receiver pin in there, making sure it's flush. And I heard it click. And then we're going to lift up on our slide catch if our takedown lever isn't already down, so we can rotate our takedown lever down. Make sure our safety lever is in the down position. Install our slide. And then we're going to do a function check. So we're going to lock it to the rear. We're going to physically and visually make sure there's no round in the chamber. Check for magazine. Check our breech face. Look away. Do all three again. We are clear. So we're going to check the trigger function. Pass. Rack our slide. Check our reset. Pass. And do it one more time. We're going to take it out of battery. Pull our trigger. Does not fire, which is designed to do. Put it back in. So what you're doing is the disconnector is pushing down on your trigger bar, and then now it's going underneath the sear, so it can't release the sear. Okay, that's all about. We're going to install our magazine. Magazine should fall out under gravity. There you go. Completely passed the functions test. All right, and there you go, the 365 D.A.R.K disassembly and reassembly kit. I'm going to make another kit for the P320 series and another kit for the classic line as well. So you can see with their proper tools how easy it is to put this back together. I know when I first took apart my 365, it was quite a chore putting it back together just because it didn't have the right size punches and picks and stuff. So SIGGuy.com, you can find all kinds of tools and stuff on there. Pistol stands. I got FDES base pads all back in stock. Armory Craft products are on there. A bunch of tutorial how-to videos, review videos, all kinds of stuff on SIGGuy.com. So check it out. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube, there should be a subscribe button right down here in the corner. If you could smash that baby, I'd really appreciate it. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Thank you very much, and have a good day.